Good afternoon. We're going to get started so I can have you out of here. I promised by 4, I think it is, just so you know. I know what you're thinking, Bob, if you're here at 4, we'll be gone and we'll be alone. First of all, my name is Bob Hendricks. I am an attorney here in Columbus, Ohio, but I'm not that kind, so don't hold it against me. That's the first thing. My area of expertise is estate planning and what they like to call elder law. We're not supposed to call it Medicaid protection planning anymore. The Supreme Court wants us to call it elder law. It sounds a little fancier, doesn't it? I'm also a member and founder of an organization along with Jay Lender, who's in the back of the room. We founded an organization called COPEC, and some of you have been to some of the other seminars, but for those of you who haven't, the idea behind this foundation is we hold public seminars, meetings like this. We use professionals throughout the city to do this. There is no charge. Just remember, you get what you pay for. Keep that in mind. But the concept is to bring education out to the public from professionals who are out there doing it every day. So it's not the the ivory-colored walls type situation. So we founded this organization about 7, 8 years ago, and I am part of that. The topic for today, we're going to talk about some estate planning issues. I know it's a little morbid on such a cold day here in Columbus, but I do want to point out our picture here. Does anybody know where that is? Any curiosity? Any concept of where that picture was taken? I took it, by the way. Yes, I know I'm not much of a cameraman. That is the southeast coast of Georgian Bay, 2 hours north of Toronto, near a town called Barrie. If any of you are Molson beer drinkers, this is the water they make it from because it's right by the brewery. But it's a cool place. And you can go out on the bay 100 yards on a raft, be 60 feet above the floor of the lake, and see the ripples in the sand. So it's a pretty cool place. The only thing I'll warn you if you ever go is that it's fed by a glacier. So this isn't bath water, okay? This isn't bath. Matter of fact, my wife says you have to count to 10 before you scream, okay? And she says by then you'll be numb, so you won't scream. The concept we're going to talk about is the estate planning issue. And I always talk about, whenever I do this, I talk about the 4 estates of estate planning. I had a meeting in my office this morning. A young couple came in and said, we need to talk about our estate. We want to get our estate set up. We have 3 little children. And I said, well, I sometimes like to have fun with people. When you do this every day for 26 years, just so you know, I was only 12 when I started. I've been doing this 26 years. When you do that, you want to have a little fun sometimes just to break the monotony. And so I said, well, which estate do you want to talk about? She goes, well, our estate. Well, as you can see on the screen, you actually have 4. You have what we call your probate estate. That's the one you all came here thinking about today. That's the one that goes through the court. Now, I know we have probably residents of Franklin County, Fairfield County, maybe Licking County, who knows, Union. But the point is, every county has a probate court, and it's run by, of course, the probate judge. And his job is about threefold. 1 is to handle estates when we die. 2 is to handle guardianships. Now, when I say guardianships, you're probably thinking of the 4-year-old. Matter of fact, we had one just recently, a 10-year-old, whose mother and father died of cancer within a few weeks of each other. Okay? And so somebody has to be appointed as guardian. But 95% of guardianships aren't for children. They're for adults. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, where your 96-year-old mother has lost it and somebody has to be appointed her guardian. Okay? That's a probate court. It does one other thing. I won't show of hands, but if you're married, you went to probate court to get your marriage license. That's also where you get your marriage license. You don't get it at the same place you file your death. I know you think that, but it's a different desk when you get down there, just so you know. Okay, so then we have your non-probate estate. What's your non-probate? Well, that's Jay Lender's world. That is where you've named beneficiaries on your benefits here at work. Maybe you have personal life insurance. You've named a beneficiary on that. And so you've named beneficiaries and you want the money to go directly to individuals. Now, if you're married, no problem. You want to name your wife or husband as beneficiary. If you have children, I'm going to give you some homework. I taught for 19 years at Franklin University. I might even have a student or two of mine in here from back in those days. But I taught there for 19 years. I love to give homework. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of homework today. First homework assignment is make sure somebody outside your home knows where your will is. You might say, well, my wife knows, my husband knows. They were in the car with you that night. They're not there to tell me. So make sure somebody outside the house, a child, if you have young children, maybe a brother, sister, somebody knows where you keep it. Now, where's the worst place to keep them? Somebody said safe deposit box, lawyer's office. I have over 8,000 clients spread all over Ohio. This afternoon, when you're taking a break about 2:30, I'll be pulling into Cleveland to file a probate case in Cleveland, Ohio. And then tonight I'll be back for dinner. That's kind of my world. So, that's the concept, is somebody needs to know where to find it. And so we want to make sure somebody outside your house knows where it is. In case you're in that car together, or if you're single, does somebody know where to find it? We find in 3 out of 10 cases, they can never find the will when somebody dies. So you don't want to be one of those cases. The taxable estate, there's an old saying, you can't take it with you. You've heard that? Well, the state of Ohio and the IRS are going to make sure you don't. Okay? So we've got taxes. And then we also have long-term care estate. Now, I'm not going to touch on that one too much today, because that's a whole different seminar that Kopek can put on for you at a different session. It takes a whole hour just for that. But that's where maybe you have a concern about long-term care, nursing home expense, and maybe not for yourself, maybe for an elderly parent, grandparent. And so that's a whole separate session. But that's a separate estate. And I always like to point out to people that it doesn't do myself or some other attorney any good to set up a great will for you and put your estate and your house in order, as we like to say, and then you go to a nursing home, and 7 years later you pass away, and your children come into my office, and I tell them there's $1.98 left. How do you want me to divide the checks up? Okay? So you always want to make sure that you've got that base covered. And what would happen if that situation happened to you? Now, probate estate, real quick, what is it? I had this couple that came into my office the other day. The first thing she said is, she goes, well, before we get any further, before we even start, I want to make sure we avoid probate. And I said, well, we can do that, but why do you say that? She goes, I don't know. My dad told me last night to make sure I told you we want to avoid probate. I don't even know what it is. And so that's true of most people, to be honest with you. That's true of some judges, to be honest with you. But what that basically is the court that's going to handle your estate. But here's the key. It's a court of public record. What does that mean? Let me ask you this. Is anybody in the room willing tomorrow morning on the front page of the Dispatch to put your list of all your assets, all your debts, all your credit card numbers, who your children are, how much of your estate they're going to get, what their addresses are? Anybody willing to do that? Well, obviously I'm being silly. Of course not. That's what probate does. Anybody sitting with a laptop on a mountaintop in Afghanistan can look up an estate in Franklin County, Ohio. It's public record. It's on the internet. And I know my dear friend Chris Spielman was upset one day. He heard me speaking. He goes, you mean Stephanie stuff's on? I said, yeah. He went home, looked it up, called me, and goes, I can't believe this. It's public record. Okay? Anybody can look it up. So basically what this means is all the assets in your name, or you have a joint account. Now, I know I have some married couples here. I have some single individuals. I have some people in different relationships. I understand all that. I have over 8,000 clients. I've got it across the board from A to Z, people in different kinds of relationships, and people who don't want to be in relationships, but, that's what they are. But my point is, some more homework. Check if you're married. Check your bank account. Make sure it's a joint and survivor account. How would you do that? You can't ask a teller. They won't know. You'll have to ask a bank officer. If you have an account here, make sure you've got it set up that it would go immediately to your beneficiary, your spouse. The way to remember this is it should be John or Mary. People ask me at cocktail parties and events all the time. They find I'm an estate planning attorney. And they'll say, can you answer one question? Is it and or is it or? It's or. And the way you remember this, it's in the word survivor. That's how you remember it. So it's John or Mary, not John and. Okay? Check the deed to your house. It's probably in your closing papers when you bought your home. Check your deed. It'll say warranty deed at the top. And it should say John Smith and Mary Smith or the survivor. If it doesn't say that, then at your death, half of your house is going through the probate court. Half your checking account is going through the probate court. So if you're married, I know this for the single people, it's a little sidebar here, but for the married couples in the room, you want to make sure you do that. And make sure you check that out. Checks that come in after we die, IRS refund checks. I'm always kidding my wife that the only time I'll get an IRS refund check is after I'm dead. We get those a lot. People pass away, 6 months later, here comes your refund check. It's made out to you. How do we cash it? You're gone. And so those are things that go through your probate estate, your cars, your stocks, your bonds, your personal effects. I don't know about you, but most of the people I meet have certain items that they want to make sure somebody gets. Ladies, you always want to make sure that your daughters get all the jewelry and the collectibles and the china. And then guys, we feel bad, so we want to make sure our son gets the tools, right? And then you pass away and your kids come in my office and I say, Jill, you're getting all the china and the collectibles and the jewelry, and Fred, you're getting a Sears hammer, okay? And that's just the way it is. I got a rusted out wheelbarrow when my dad died, but I still got it. So personal effects that you want to go to someone, individuals or types of things that you want to make sure somebody gets. Now, what's your non-probate? Things you put beneficiaries on. Second homework assignment. Okay, second homework assignment. Make sure that you do not have any beneficiaries who are minors. Now, I know we have a whole range of ages here, but for those of you that have younger children, you have your spouse as your first beneficiary, and then you name the children second. Well, let's say your children are 4 and 6. You and your wife die in that accident together. How does a 4 and 6-year-old cash a $100,000 life insurance check? They can't. So where's the check go? Probate court. Managed by the probate judge, which means he's going to put it in a savings account at Huntington, and when the children turn 18, he's going to turn it over to them. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want an 18-year-old child of mine having $100,000 in a checkbook. They'll have the biggest party in Columbus, Ohio. Okay? I want to make sure that some older, wiser head, I call him Uncle Fred, I want to make sure Uncle Fred's over that money. And so you never name minor beneficiaries. Or if you're single, maybe you're single, divorced, whatever, you have minor children, okay? Make sure that they're not beneficiaries. Don't name their guardian, because then it's their money. But we're going to talk about in a moment who you name. So I'm going to come back to this. I'm not leaving it. Trusts, different kinds of trusts. There's all types of trusts. There's revocable trust for people who want to avoid probate. There's irrevocable trust for people who have tax issues or you're concerned about losing assets to long-term care. There's ways to use these trusts to avoid and protect your assets. And so, I always tell people it's like, trusts are like the word Chrysler. I could tell you that I drove a Chrysler here today, and you could go out in that big parking lot, and you can't tell which one it is, unless you notice the big Ohio State emblem on top of the hood. I know we have mostly Ohio State fans here. By the way, do we have any Michigan grads here? University of Michigan grads? No? Okay, we can go a lot faster then. We'll move along. We always have to go slower for them. The point is that that's what trusts are like. There's different trusts for different situations. I have a special needs granddaughter. She's 13. She just turned 13 last week. And why that's so exciting is when she was born, she was given 3 to 5 days to live. And she turned 13. And she's doing great. She lives down in Cincinnati. Well, but she'll never know what money is. She'll never know what what you guys do. She'll never know what a soldier is. She knows what firemen are, because the fire department's right next to her school, and they come over and visit all the time. So she knows firemen, but she wouldn't know what money is, so I can't leave her anything. But I can leave money in trust to take care of her, but I can't actually leave it to her. Even at 18, I couldn't do that. So there's trust for situations like that. I have clients who have no children. They want to leave money to their favorite charities. There's different trusts for those types of situations. And so really it depends on your situation. Or maybe you want to leave money to your grandchildren, but they're only 2 and 4. there's trust that you can do that with. So there's different trusts for different situations. The beauty of a trust is it doesn't die when you die. Where do wills go when we die? Probate court. What's the judge want to do? Get it done, get it closed, get it filed, get rid of it. Well, we want this to go on for indefinitely to take care of young children, special needs children, whatever. He doesn't want to deal with that. He's not trained. He's not really got the tools to do it. Trusts do. And we'll come back to that in just a second. Now, taxable estate. I'm going to just touch on this. I know you're all worried about your 1040s and all that. Your taxable estate's real easy. Basically, they tax, depending on the situation, if you have a joint account, one half your joint account, with one little exception. If any of you have been put on your mom's checking account to help her write checks, you see that a lot. Or you've put somebody on your checking account in case I become disabled, I want to make sure my daughter can write some checks. If you pass away, that's considered all yours, unless she can prove, your daughter can prove she put some of the money in there, which she didn't. So in that little case, it's all counted against the person who put the money in. Life insurance, annuities are taxable at our death. Now, life insurance is not income taxable. So the beneficiaries get a $100,000 life insurance check. They don't pay any income tax. But it is part of your estate for what President Bush used to like to call the death tax, or we call the estate tax. It is part of that, okay? Your CDs, your bank accounts, real estate. I don't know if I have any farmers in here. I spoke on Sunday, this past Sunday, to about 1,500 farmers with the Organic Farmers Association, where they raise everything organically. I'd never been to this. I went to speak and thought there'd be, well, how many can there be? I thought, 50, 100? There was 1,500 people there. Kind of shocked. I had pass-outs for 100. And I'm not like, I can't take the 7 loaves and the 2 fishes and divide it. I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't have enough pass-outs. But the point is that if you have a farm, that's also part of your estate. Not only the land, but the tools, the equipment, the cattle, the horses. If any of you have family with land over in Eastern Ohio, you've been hearing a lot about the fracking and all this oil that's under the ground and this gas. Well, guess what? One of those farmers passes away. Governor Kasich wants to know how much oil's down there, how much gas is down there. Because when they pull it out 10 years from now, he wants to make sure it got taxed, okay? And so that's a big issue now, is mineral rights and what they're worth under the ground. So it's all part of your estate. The tax rate, now 99% of Americans do not have to worry about the estate tax anymore because it's set at $5 million. And just so you know, this may not apply to anybody in the room, including me, but just because you're married, it isn't $10 million. If you got married to double your estate taxes, it didn't work, okay? It's still only 5. There is a way through trust planning to double it, but it's only 5. We also have income tax. You were live for half the year. Let's make this easy on me on a Tuesday. You lived till July 1st, you died. We got to file a 1040 for the half the year you were alive. We have to file a 1041, you probably never heard of that, for the half the year you were dead. So that we tax it even after you're gone. Again, can't take it with you. The IRS is going to make sure. And so we have income taxes to pay on. You have retirement plans you never paid tax on. I've got an IRA. I haven't taken any money out of it yet because I'm not old enough. But when I do, I got to pay taxes. What if I die on the way back from Cleveland tonight? Never got taxed. Somebody's got to pay taxes on that. So your retirement plans that you never paid taxes on are taxed at our death. And so there's a lot of different taxes, as you see, going on beyond just the estate tax. That's not the only thing we have to worry about. Now, here's what a traditional estate plan would look like. Probably as you entered the room today, this is what you probably are thinking about when you think of an estate plan, where we've set up a traditional will, and we have a husband and a wife. I'm going to use a married couple example just for a moment. And they've got 3 children. And we're going to call them Heather, Jenny, and Chelsea. This is a purely fictional family. It doesn't exist, okay? But they have a husband and a wife, 3 children. Let's take our facts a couple ways. First of all, husband dies everything to wife, wife dies everything to husband, okay? So they have the both of them to the 3 children. Well, let's say that these children are 23, 32, and 40. They're going to get it tomorrow. What if they're 4, 6, and 8? Now we got a problem, okay? So again, with our younger beneficiaries, those of you who have minor children, this is a huge issue. And you may say, well, Bob, something happens to me, my wife will probably survive by many years. A client of mine 10 years ago asked me this question. Sitting in my office, I'll never forget it. It was December 15th. The reason I remember that so well, it's my birthday. Not that you need to know that, but that's my birthday. So they're sitting there on my birthday, and he says to me, he's the head of the engineering department at Ohio State. So a pretty bright guy. And he's about 70 years old, and they're getting ready to get on a plane and fly to Sri Lanka for their 50th wedding anniversary. He was originally from Sri Lanka. And he looked at me and he goes, Bob, what's the odds of us dying together? And I looked at him and I said, Dr. Sunderlingam, if it happens to you, it was 100%. And he laughed and he looked at his wife and he goes, he's actually right. 10 days later, they died in the tsunami on the beach of Sri Lanka. 10 days later. It does happen, okay? So now we've got beneficiaries that are 4, 6, and 8, okay? The other thing I'm going to mention here in a moment is we always also have to concern ourselves. My mother passed away about 8 years ago of a horrible brain tumor, but she used to say sometimes people die in the wrong order. And forgive me if this has happened in your life already, but what if somebody dies in the wrong order? What if that 40-year-old daughter of mine dies first, and now 1/4 of my estate's going to a 13-year-old who doesn't know what money is and never will? What if Jennifer passes away before me, and now my money's going to 2 grandsons? They're 5 and 18 months. They're brilliant because they think I'm the greatest, but they're 5 and 18 months. It was funny, my daughter called me this morning because my grandson there was something going on at school today, they're supposed to wear orange. And she called me and says, Dad, I went to his closet to get something orange for him to wear to this party. His entire closet is scarlet and gray. And I said, well, so what's the problem? I didn't understand what the problem was. Okay. But the point, you see, I have to understand I have 4 daughters. So this was the first grandson. This is the first boy in my life in 40 years. So you can imagine what his room looks like. But that's always a concern. What if Jennifer dies first? My beneficiaries are 5 and 18 months. You need to keep that in mind. What if people die in the wrong order? Now, we talk about trust. And I know most of the people in the room probably have never dealt with this. For the few of you that have, this might be a little refresher. Here's the concept. I don't know who the president of General Motors is, have no clue. But if he died today, tomorrow morning, you can go to a GM dealer and they'll still sell cars. They might wear black armbands with his name or something on it, memoriam, but they open up for business. Trusts are the same way. They're a lot like a corporation. It goes beyond your life. It can carry on indefinitely. All of you have probably heard of the Kennedy compound. And the Kennedys own this big compound outside of Hyannisport, and they've owned it since 1934. And despite, mom and dad passing away, several of the sons, they still own it. Well, how's that possible? Because they never owned it. That's in a Kennedy trust, and it will own it until the end of time. So no matter what happens, no matter who gets divorced, no matter who dies first, they never owned it. They can't lose it. And so that's the concept, is it can go on as long as you want it to. You and I may not need one to go on that long, but they literally can. They literally can. So the concept is we have an entity like a corporation, except it doesn't pay taxes. It doesn't have any effect on your 1040. The IRS doesn't even want to know about it. But at my passing, everything goes to my wife in trust. She passes away everything to our children. They pass away everything to our grandchildren. If one of our children dies first, it's held in trust for the young grandchildren. Okay? And here's really the cool thing. Now, my wife doesn't know this, guy, so if you meet her, don't mention it. But if I die first and she remarries, now I think everyone in the room can agree she can't do as well next time. But let's just say she remarried. He doesn't get the trust. The grandkids and the children do. So that's another cool facet if you're ever, or your children. If my daughter, gets a divorce, he doesn't get part of her trust share. And so it actually can protect beyond just your death. Your assets, make sure they stay with the right people. And so again, our beneficiaries are the 3 children, of course. And if they're older, like my kids are, they get it, we're done. If they're younger, like maybe yours are or Jay's are, it's held in trust until they're old enough. But Uncle Fred can use the money for anything they need. Food on the table, clothes on their back, college educations, get married, go to medical school. The money is in a trust account at whatever institution the trustee wants to use, a bank or whatever they want to use, some financial services company. And it's being invested, and as the children need the money, they pull it out. I'm a trustee of a few of these because I have some clients who don't have Uncle Freds. And I have one where he died 2 years ago on Thanksgiving Day, had 5 children. And I'm the trustee, and I get phone calls from the guardian that Sally's getting ready to start Ohio State, and she needs money for the tuition, and Johnny needs football shoes, and so I send a check for the football shoes. It's not my money. If I get sued, it isn't my money. But the money's in an account for these children and managed, hopefully, until they reach a certain age. Now, the other thing I suggest to another homework assignment is if you do have minor children, legally they can inherit at 18. But again, as I said earlier, I don't want an 18-year-old getting $100,000 or $200,000 at 18. Not because I don't trust them. I don't trust the rest of the world. My youngest daughter said to me one time, she goes, Dad, you don't trust us. I said, honey, I trust you completely. It's the rest of the world I don't trust. And so you want an older, wiser head saying, no, you don't get a Hummer 3 at 16, okay? That's what you want. And so those are the types of situations. I once had a young lady that I'm trustee of. She's 19. Now she's about 22. But she called me at 19. She wanted to get some money out of her account to buy her boyfriend a birthday present for his 19th birthday. And I said, well, I'm leaving the office in a few minutes. I'll write the check out, and you just swing by and pick it up. My staff will be here. And I said, how much does it need to be for? She goes, I think about $80,000 will cover it. I thought she was going to buy like a shirt at Macy's, you know. I said, what are we buying? Oh, he wants this big truck with a horse trailer so he can take his horse to the horse shows. I'm like, For 6 months, she never spoke to me, but she still had her $80,000. So the point is, that's the concept of how the trust works. By the way, if you're single, obviously you're noticing that I have a will there with the trust. You go, wait a minute. I thought you said will or trust. There's a special will, and in that handout that you maybe picked up at the end of the back of the room, if you didn't pick one out, I have a handout at the back that says Estate Planning 101. If you didn't get one, pick it up on the way out. It's just a little 4-page handout. It's everything you want to know about estate planning, and this way you don't have to read Susie Orman's 12 books about it, okay? This will be enough. Well, the concept is with a trust is we have to put the cows in the barn. What do I mean by that? My home's in trust, my office building in Dublin's in trust, all my assets are in trust. Now, I still own them. I can sell my house today if I want to. Well, if my wife says it's okay, I can sell it. But I still own it. I can sell my office building today if I want to. But if I died tonight, it's in trust, goes to my wife. Oh, he's got jumping over there, Jay. We're in the corner there. So the point is, you're still in control of everything. But loose ends do come up. What do I mean by loose ends? IRS refund checks. I'll tell you the one we get all the time, refund on your auto insurance. You paid your State Farm agent for 6 months of premium. You died 3 months into the policy. State Farm sends a refund. You might didn't know that. We sold your home. Nationwide sends a refund on your homeowners. These are checks that pop up after we die. It could be something big. We had a client just 12 weeks ago, husband and wife, 83 years old. They didn't trust their driving anymore. They were going to a grandson's wrestling tournament, so they had their 16-year-old grandson drive them. This is out in western Ohio near Versailles, Ohio. Another 16-year-old was coming the other way on a country road texting. Killed everybody. Now, there's a $500,000 lawsuit that just got settled. Here comes a $500,000 check-in made out to the people who died. You say, well, why wouldn't they make it out to the children? They can't. The law says you have to make it out to the person who died. The person, that's who got harmed. And so it could be something big. A good friend of mine 2 years ago, down in Florida, I went to law school with him, called me. He goes, Bob, he goes, I got a crazy case here. Maybe you can help me with. And I said, sure, what do you need? He goes, I have a client passed away about 2 weeks ago, and we discovered last night he won the Florida lottery. They found the winning ticket in the glove compartment of his car. How do I get it in his trust? That's what the will is for. The will tells the judge to put it in the trust because you didn't get to do it. You didn't live long enough to do it. And also, for those of you that have minor children, it's in the will where you name the guardian. Who's going to raise the children? Who's going to finish raising them? Something you need to know is guardian ends at 18. That applies to you too. So if you've got a 16-year-old right now at home, the day he or she turns 18, you have no legal rights over them. I don't care if they're living at home, you're paying their tuition to Ohio State, and you're taking care of all their needs. You have no rights. What does that mean? If they're in an accident, they're hurt, they go to the hospital, doctors can't talk to you. You don't have any legal custody of them. You can't go to the bank and take care of their bills. You have no rights. And we're going to talk about in a moment how you get those back. And by the way, that also applies to husbands and wives. I don't care if you've been married 3 weeks or 35 years. You have no legal rights over your spouse. You're all probably familiar with the HIPAA law. It invades my world too. It basically says you have no legal rights, medical rights over each other either. So it doesn't matter if you're married, doesn't matter if you've got children, the moment they turn 18, no rights. We're going to show you how to get those back. Now, one of the issues we always talk about in these meetings, and I call it the Persturpes trap. Now, I don't know how many of you took Latin in high school. I was an idiot. I took 3 years of Latin. I should have taken 3 years of Spanish, but nobody told me that back then. But it does help you when you go to law school or medical school to be able to read Latin, because you know what the deal is before the professor tells you. But Persturpes is a Latin term that roughly translated means follow the tree. Okay? I'm going to use my daughter Heather as an example. She's my oldest. She's the one who has the special needs child. And Heather also has another child, Elizabeth. Elizabeth's 19. She's a nursing student at UC down in Cincinnati. Brilliant young lady. And she's my first grandchild, so obviously she's a little bit of the favorite. Well, what if Heather dies first? And Heather's married to Kevin, which is our K up here. Kevin's the greatest son-in-law that ever walked the earth. He's the son I never had. I had 4 daughters. Little funny side story, but we had 3 children, and I'd been to see the doctor, and a couple years later my wife came home and says, we got a little issue here. I go, what's the issue? She goes, I'm expecting. I said, you got a big issue. Okay. Well, I have 3 daughters. You don't know this, but I'm Robert III. So when I found out we were going to have another child, I thought, finally a boy. Finally Robert IV. So I prayed and prayed for the 4th. I got a 4th girl. We obviously didn't communicate properly. Okay. So I need to have a little discussion someday when I'm gone, like, Lord, you didn't understand me. Okay. But we have a 4th girl. Well, the point is, Kevin's that son I never had. Great young man. But he's very good looking, got a great job down in Cincinnati. If Heather dies first, what do you think her will says? To Kevin. Yours all say that to your spouse, right? Well, let's say 2 years after Heather dies, Kevin remarries Lisa, a gal from Louisville, Kentucky, with 2 children from a previous marriage. Where is 1/4 of my estate? Is it with my 2 granddaughters? It's with Lisa's children. And I'm sure they're very nice, but my grandchildren just lost out. I call it accidental disinheritance. Heather didn't mean to disinherit them. Kevin didn't mean to. I certainly didn't. But Persturpes says, follow the tree. The moment Heather dies, it all goes to Kevin, then down through his tree. And so to his new wife. And so that's a trap we all fall into. I guarantee if you go home and find your will tonight, and the other thing I always like to mention before I forget about it, the worst place I really think to have your will is your lawyer's office. The reason is we die too. A couple of years ago, we had a client of ours called me. Her mother passed away down in Cincinnati. They couldn't find the will. We went on a hunt for it through the legal community, found it in a warehouse in Cleveland. And the reason was these Cleveland attorneys had bought the Cincinnati firm. Then a couple of them died. They closed the firm. They put everything in a warehouse. We did find it through sheer luck, to be honest with you. There's no unclaimed will program here in Ohio. Unclaimed funds, yes, and unclaimed wills. But we did find it. But the point is we want to make sure that we avoid the Persturpes trap. If you go home and find your will tonight and you start looking through it, you're going to see this word all over it. I guarantee it. I can't guarantee you a lot in this world. I can guarantee that. So what do we have to do to get out of the trap? You can't do it with a will. That's how they have to be written. There's no choice. But a trust supersedes a will. I don't know if we have any euchre players in here. I'm a euchre player. I don't know if we have any in here. But for those of you that aren't euchre players, the right bar is the biggest. It's the hammer, okay? It's the hammer of that game. If you got the right bar, you pretty much win. Well, the trust is the right bar in estate planning. It defeats everything. It doesn't matter what anything else says. Trust trump wills. So it doesn't matter what my daughter's will says, because my trust says to my grandkids. It doesn't matter if Kevin got remarried. My trust says to my grandkids. So keep that in mind. These are what I like to call the 3 essential documents. I'm going to spend a few minutes on these. What is this? This is a document. These 3 documents everybody in the room should have. Everybody with children over 18, make sure they have them, especially if they're still living at home or they're single. You have a 24-year-old daughter that lives up in Cleveland, got a nice job up there. You need to make sure somebody has these 3 documents over her. Because if she's in an accident and you race up to the Cleveland Clinic and they're going to say, Jane, do you have a medical power of attorney for your daughter? Well, no, she's my daughter. I mean, I had her 24 years ago. I raised her. We can't talk to you. You don't have any authority over her. And so everybody in this room, everybody with children over 18, now if they're married, of course they're going to name their spouse. But if you have single children, it's really important. Okay? And so the first of the 3 is the power of attorney for financial and legal affairs. Keep in mind what I said earlier. If you're married, you don't have these rights. Okay? I had a little funny story. I happened about a year ago. Our pastor heard me speak at an event and came up to me after and says, hey, Bob, he goes, if I shorten my sermon down for a few minutes, could you come up and just do a few minutes on this next week at church? And I said, sure, I'd be glad to. So he shortened it, which, by the way, the parishioners were very happy that he shortened it. But I went up and did my thing. And the next day, I'm in my office. I get a phone call from the lady, and she introduced herself. I won't tell you her name. And she goes, I just called to apologize. And I said, for what? I didn't know who you are. She goes, well, yesterday after you spoke, we were out in the gathering space, and I told a couple of parishioners, friends of mine, you're nuts. That's not true. And this morning I called my lawyer, and he said that he's absolutely right. That's right. You don't have any legal rights over your husband just because you've been married for 47 years. She goes, I just want to apologize. I said, no big deal. I said, but I got to ask you, do you really think I would stand up on the altar in front of the pastor and the cross and lie? And she said to me, well, you are a lawyer. So... True story, true story. So you want to make sure you have these. You want to make sure you have these. The financial means you can handle all financial and legal affairs. Ladies, the husband's had a stroke. He's not competent. You want to sell the house and downsize. You can't. His name's on the deed. You can't sign for him, okay? You can't sign for him. I'll never forget back in 1965, my mom and dad were buying a new home up in Devonshire. And my mother woke up this morning so sick she couldn't even make it to the bathroom, okay? They're closing. Well, Dad says, no problem, I'll go down, I'll sign for both of us. He did. They closed. Today, they're like, no way. You got to wait till she can come in and sign her papers. You couldn't do that today. So that's the power of attorney for financial and legal. Medical power of attorney. This is, again, I always tell people this is A to Y. This is everything but turn the machines off. Could be very temporary due to an accident. You can't make your medical decisions. They rushed into the emergency room at Riverside, and you're not going to die, but somebody's got to step in and go sign for the surgery, sign for the treatment. Okay. Little side note on this. For those of you that are taking care of an elderly parent and you take them into the hospital for they need something done, something's happened, illness, they've fallen, whatever, be careful what you sign. You want to sign to admit them. Make sure you don't guarantee financial payment. I've had this happen over and over again with people, and they call me and go, how do I get out of it? You can't. You signed it. I don't care that you didn't read it. You signed it. So be very careful with elderly parents if you're admitting them to a hospital or a nursing home that you're not guaranteeing payment. So you want to read those things very closely. So A to Y. Living will, do not resuscitate. Turn the machines off. Okay? Now, people always say to me, well, I want to make sure they don't do it too soon. First of all, ladies, your husbands must be sick before you do this. Okay? I'm just warning you right now. Okay? But the point is that Ohio has the strictest law in the country. Coincidentally, Michigan has the most lax. That's why Dr. Kevorkian worked in Michigan, even though he lived in the north edge of Toledo, because that's where it had the most lax law. Our law requires 2 doctors to certify, first, there's no hope of recovery, absolutely none. Secondly, death will occur when they turn off the equipment within a reasonable amount of time. Now, I'm an attorney. Words are our tools. You hear reasonable, you probably think a few hours. In the law, that's within 14 days. So it isn't like in the next 2 or 3 hours. It could be, but they're saying in the next 14 days they'll die without this equipment. You are unaware of yourself and your environment, okay? You do not know where you're at, you don't know what you're doing, and you're not going to wake up. People say to me all the time, oh, there was a guy in Atlanta about 10 years ago that woke up. He was asleep for 27 years and he woke up. And it was all over the papers. That's true, he did. What wasn't in the papers was he died 14 days later because his organs couldn't support his body. They had atrophied so bad. So, yeah, it does happen, but it is so rare that I'm not going to trust that happening to me. So I want to make sure somebody can make decisions for me that need to be made, and that you won't feel any pain or suffering. So they are allowed to keep certain machines, I'll call them, IVs, that, you know, a drip, a painkiller drip or something, so you're not feeling anything. But you're authorizing somebody to make the decision. The other phone call we get a lot is, Bob, this has happened last night. I went to the hospital. My mother's in there. She has a living will. They asking me to sign the forms. Why are they doing that? She has a living will. That's what the living will does in Ohio. It authorizes who you want to make the decisions. So it's not the doctors. They're going to say you met the test, but it's your loved one that you've named who's going to make the decision. I also recommend, ladies, that you don't put the son-in-law on this one. Just warning you, okay? The point is that's what you're doing. Now, there is a provision in there that's never used that says if 2 doctors determine that you've met the test and they can't find the people you've named, and you always want a first and second. You always want a first and second backup. I'm driving up to Cleveland this afternoon. I've got a spare tire. I wish I had 2, okay? I always like a backup for a backup. And so the point is you always want a first and second choice, but they can't find them. You're authorizing the doctors to turn the machines off. Guess what? I've never seen it done in 26 and a half years of practicing law. The reason is they don't want sued. I'm on my way to Cleveland today. I have a bad accident in Mansfield in the construction zone. We call that Death Valley up there. And you're going through that Death Valley area and you have a bad accident, and they life flight me to Mansfield General. They can't find my wife. They can't find my 4 daughters. Of course, if they'd have called Macy's, they'd have found them, you know, but they didn't. And the point is that the doctors say, hey, keeping Bob alive 5 more minutes is inhuman and unethical. Let's shut the machines off. 10 minutes left after they do it, my wife walks in. I just got your cell phone call. Where's my husband? And they go, oh, we just turned the machines off. He's gone. What's the next words out of her mouth? Where's my lawyer? You know, they don't want sued. So they're going to do everything they can to find the person you name. They don't want to make the decision. The other thing you want to make sure, another homework assignment, is if you have a living will, make sure on your driver's license you've got that little sticker that says you have a living will. A good friend of mine runs Riverside Emergency Room. And Dr. Snyder says that it doesn't tell us who it is, but it tells us this person went to so much trouble to go see a lawyer and get this done. This isn't a loner. Somebody's going to be looking for this guy pretty soon. So let's keep him around till that person shows up who's looking for him. There is somebody out there that wants to find this guy. And so that's another reason to put it on. I have heard that they're working on a smart, what they call a smart driver's license, that the hospital could actually be able to put your license into a machine and it'll pull up who to call, which would be kind of cool. Now, my wife thinks the government will use to track us. I'm like, you know, I wish the FBI director got up this morning and said, I wonder where Bob is today. Let's pull him up on the computer. I wish I was that important, you know, that they would really wonder where I'm at, you know. But the point is, that would be kind of cool for us to have. Talking about estate planning, and I'm going to take some questions here if you have any. Here's the issue. I don't care how big your estate is. We'll be glad to meet with you. There's no charge for the first meeting. We'll meet at your home. We'll meet in our office. Or this is an education seminar. If you've got a favorite attorney, a brother who's an attorney, you want to take him this information, take it to him. If he says, hey, I'm still not sure what Bob talked about, have him call me. There's no charge. It's a kind of just a reciprocal thing. I'll say, hey, here's what we talked about. Here's the issues we brought up. So feel welcome to do that. Jay back there will work with your own attorney if you need some assistance with that. He has no problem doing that. It's not just me. This is an education seminar. But if you want to work with us, we'll be glad to schedule a time to do that. But it doesn't matter. I had a very dear client passed away about 12, 13 years ago. To this day, he still was my wealthiest client. And he used to say, Bob, it's just more zeros. And I used to say, yeah, Dave, but you got more zeros than everybody else, okay? But his point was, it doesn't matter how many zeros. It's important to you. I've never had a beneficiary of a $10,000 estate go, oh, well, that wasn't much. It's like, no. They're going, when do we get the check? When are you writing the check? I had one call me the other day. He says, Bob, can you call Bob Daniel's Honda up here in Marysville and let him know when we're going to release the money? I said, for what? Why would I call him? It actually happens to be a client of mine. Like, why would I call Bruce? He goes, oh, my mom died last night. I didn't even know that my client died. Okay? And he wants to know when the checks are coming. So the point is that it's what's important to you. It's what are your issues. If you're single, married, divorced with children from a previous relationship, and you're concerned about the ex-spouse getting control if something happens to you, there are all kinds of ways to plan around that. And if you do have an elderly parent, we'll be glad to meet with you and discuss that. As I said, COPEC can put on a whole seminar. Maybe they've already done it. I don't know what the series of seminars are here, but they can talk about if you have issues like that you're concerned about. And we can do that as well. There are going to be new taxes. Is anybody in the room naive enough to believe that taxes aren't going up? I actually said I didn't care who got elected. Taxes were going up. I mean, that's just a given. I think we all know that. And so that's going to be an issue as well. And then the other one that comes up sometimes is if you are in a second marriage, maybe you have children from a first marriage. You've probably figured out with children 23 to 40 that I have children from 2 different marriages. Something happens to me today. I want something to go to them tomorrow. My wife's not the mother of the first 2, so why should they wait 40 more years? So there are ways to do planning that they could receive something. At least, hey, Dad remembered you at this point. There'll be more someday later. So you can do all kinds of situations and planning around how you want to do things. The other thing I do want to mention, those 3 documents that I threw up there, the financial power of attorney, the medical power of attorney, the living will. For those that attend our COPEC seminar, there is no charge to do those. So if that's all you need done, you can just send an email. My email address is on that little 101 handout. Send an email. Just put in there, attended seminar, here at your organization. Don't just put in estate planning or put your name in, because my staff is trained to go find your file and put it on my desk when I get back tomorrow. There isn't one. And they'll look for an hour, okay? So just put attended seminar. That's all you have to put, and they'll know that you're writing in about that. And we'll be glad to schedule a time for you to come in and sign those 3 documents if you need them. Or if you're married, for your spouse and you to both do it from that standpoint. So that's a little offer we make to people who attend our seminars. There's no charge for those 3 documents to make sure you have those up to date from that standpoint. Let me wrap here. We got about 10 minutes. Any questions? Now, before you ask, you can say it's your brother in Hawaii, but we all know it's you, okay? Just so you know. Any general question? Lady right here.
This is just general, but I've never really heard what it costs to put a trust together. Is it based on the state somehow? Or?
Well, I'll tell you, a gentleman asked me that last week outside of Newark. He's got a big farm, big fracking, all this oil rights coming in. And I was showing him that by doing a trust, now this is a very big estate. And I said, well, if we do this trust, it'll save you over $400,000 at your death. And I said, would it be worth $30,000 to you? He goes, of course. It was only $1,250. But I'm driving home thinking, he went for it. What were you doing changing the price, you know? Every attorney has their own fee schedule. We charge flat fees. It's not based on the hour, because if it was, I would drive to your house really slow, okay? So we base it on, if you just need traditional planning and you're single, again, I can only tell you my fees. The Code of Ethics doesn't let me tell you other people. We charge $200 to do that. If you're married, it's $350. If you want to go to the little more advanced with the trust, you're probably, as a single person, around $975, and married couple about $1,250. And that's it. There are no charge for phone calls or emails at our firm. I know other firms do, and that's what you do. But there's no charge for phone calls or emails or follow-up meetings from that standpoint. So that gives you a ballpark, okay? I've seen it anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500. Somebody came to my house the other day and another attorney quoted him $5,000. He goes, what's the difference between yours and $1,250? I said, $3,750, you know. But it depends on the situation and the attorneys and things, obviously. And I also like to work as a team. Last thing I'm going to leave you with, too, before, I almost forgot, and I have a bad habit of doing this. Make sure you put together, last homework assignment, make sure you put together a disaster team. I'm sure you have them here at this organization, okay? I don't know what it was like here on 9/11, but I'm sure this place was crazy on 9/11 when that all occurred. You guys have a disaster plan in place here. Make sure you have one. If something happens to you on the way home, out there on 270, does your wife or husband know who to call? Who's your insurance agent? Who's your accountant? Who handles your auto insurance, your life insurance? Okay. Who is on your team? Would they know who to call? And you want to make sure that your spouse knows where that is. If you're single, make sure somebody outside the house has this list. If you're married, make sure your spouse has it. Make sure somebody outside your house has it. She was in the car with you Friday night when the accident occurred. She can't call the life insurance agent either. She can't call the attorney either, whoever it is. Make sure that you have a list of who you'd want your children to get a hold of. With that, I'm going to kind of wrap up here. About 5 minutes, Jay?
No, quick question.
Yeah.
We have a question back here. Can you give a quick explanation of the difference between springing and general?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped that. On there, you saw a power of attorney that says springing or general. 98% of my clients, we do a springing power. It's an old English term. It means that they have no rights right now. But if two doctors declare me incompetent, the power springs. Now my daughter can step in, write my checks, pay my bills. She can't go to the bank today. But if I was suddenly declared incompetent, she can. A general power of attorney, we'd only do about 2% of the time. It would be somebody like my 91-year-old mother-in-law. She's living with us now. She's moved in with us. Because my wife said that my mother-in-law, she's going to put her mother in a nursing home over her dead body. And last night I told my wife, I'm thinking about arranging it. Okay? The point is, Mama needs a general. She's blind. She needs somebody to write her checks, pay her bills. She's sharp as a tack. She can tell you how much is in that checkbook today, but she can't write the checks, pay the bills. Somebody needs to take control now. If my daughter Heather, I know she wouldn't do this, but if my daughter Heather had general power of attorney over me today, she could go to the bank while I'm on my way to Cleveland and take every dime out of my accounts. She could sell my house on my way to Cleveland today. General power of attorney is a license to steal. So if you use one, make sure this person you trust more than you trust yourself, okay? Because they can do anything, anytime, even though you're perfectly competent. So why do we use them? Unfortunately, elder people, special needs adults, they need people to make decisions today. Jay, great question, whoever asked that in the back. Again, I don't want to make you late for go back. I don't know what happens if you're late for work, if there's fire squads or what, so I don't want to make you late. Anything else? By the way, if you do have a question, email me that too. Hey, Bob, I just had a quick question. The nice thing about email is I'll see it on my BlackBerry as I drive, and I can answer while I'm driving. No, I don't. I don't type. I don't type while I'm driving. Guys, thanks a lot.
Let's give it up for Mr. Hendricks, huh? Thank you so much for coming and giving us some information. Next week we'll be having our next class, which is the hacking culture. So check out the MWR website, okay? Thank you, DFAS, for coming over, and Building 21 and everybody else, thanks for coming. Have a great day.